Hollywood, come really wish they were, they were. There's no debating all that's left is the Nailsin Reagan. The flies will feast on the corpse of the beast. Only after the fill of the vulture, pop goes the culture. Pop, 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 pop goes the culture. Myths and legends, grant and escape to heaven. A darker, taller tale gives a tour of hell. Pop goes the culture, pop, pop goes the culture. Pop, 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 pop goes the culture.
You got to turn the mic on. I mean, good evening. I mean, good. Yeah, I did it again. Good morning. So I will be doing, Nailsin Ratings Live. I'll talk about the pop culture stuff that, I don't know, you may actually enjoy. Maybe not. And then gonna do about some tales of what might have been. Those are always fun. So that's what I'll do. Cool, huh? I would think so. I would. By the way, Nodak says hit the like button. That's not a bad idea. In fact, it's a good idea. While you're watching and stuff, you're like, hey, is there anything else to do? Hit that like button. That's something to do. Yeah. All right, let me go see what have I got here for all our fun and entertainment. Oh yeah, Supergirl. So we'll talk about that one. Yeah. Boy, it's a good thing I waited on this one because suddenly there's an update with it. But anyway, Supergirl star Millie Alcock pledges not to work with Israeli film institutions that are implicated in genocide. There was no genocide nor apartheid. Yeah. So initially it was saying both Millie and David Cornsweet had signed on to this pledge. But there was an update. On November 4th, the official Film Workers for Palestine Instagram account clarified that David Cornsweet has not actually signed the group's pledge. His name, instead, being added thanks to a troll who went to great lengths to pretend to be the actor in correspondence. As such, the article has been edited to remove any mention of the Superman actor. So there you go, see? He didn't do it. But oh, Millie. Oh, Millie. So, in becoming the first of the DCU's live-action stars to do so, Supergirl lead Millie Alcock has officially joined the ever-growing number of worldwide film workers who are refusing to work with Israeli film entities who are implicated in genocide and apartheid against Palestinian people, neither of which happened. But launched to industry officials on September 8th, the Film Workers Pledge for Palestine seeks to answer the call of Palestinian filmmakers who have urged the international film industry to refuse silence, racism, and dehumanization, as well as to do everything humanly possible to end complicity in their oppression. The world's highest court, the International Court of Justice, has ruled there is a plausible risk of genocide in Gaza? Yeah, maybe. And that Israel's occupation and apartheid against Palestinians are unlawful. Oh, that's weird. Why do they have, Arabs able to vote and hold public office in Israel? You see, they can't even do that right. Reads the pledge's main text: standing for equality, justice, and freedom for all people is a profound moral duty that none of us can ignore. So too, we must speak out now against the harm done to the Palestinian people. Yeah. What about what Hamas did once they got the ceasefire? That anything? No. Inspired by filmmakers united against apartheid, refuses. Okay, again and again and again. So she signed on to this crap and doesn't really know what she's talking about. And this is one of those situations where, boy, you really do have to separate the art from the artist, And it's getting harder and harder to do, isn't it? I mean, you really don't want anything pissing any potential market off. But when you weigh into something like this, you inevitably do. I mean, just little old me just pissed off God knows how many, saying, yeah, there's no genocide or apartheid there. There's a war. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, no. But, see, I don't have a movie or anything to go out there, and they just launched this whole thing for DCU and whatnot. And then all of it was there any Israeli film studio involved with any of these people? Did they ever work with them? Where are they going to? So it's just, I'm going to stand up and make a difference. So there you go. And then, of course, it goes on about, hey, maybe some of the imagery in the Superman film was supposed to, it looked more akin to the Ukrainian war and stuff like that. But whatever, turns out somebody was an imposter, and David Cornswed, he didn't have anything to do with that. So, but little Millie Alcock did. Yeah. Look, she was good in House of the Dragon, and she may be all right in Supergirl, provided they write something for her that's, that she can do. But ultimately, man, a lot of pissing off for next to nothing will have no impact whatsoever on the conflict. So it's like, do you feel better about yourself now, I guess? What about crypto? Is the dog going to put his paw on this too? We don't know. But for the most part, it appears just Supergirl. And, oh, yeah, there was the voice actress for the bridge. Don't you mean the bride? The Indira Varma who did the voice. And if they do a live action, if the DCU survives long enough, for the Creature Commandos characters, she would get the role. That was supposed to be the idea. But apparently she signed on. And Zoe Chow, who are both, and I don't remember her. Well, anyway, apparently they were both part of the Creature Commandos cartoon, and so they're signatory. So it isn't just Supergirl, technically. They haven't done any live action work yet. But, and of course, if they ever have a cartoon Supergirl, I'm assuming it'll be Millie doing the voice. So there you go. 3 actors of the DCU signing on to boycott Israel. So they picked a side in a war that doesn't really involve them at all. We'll have to see how that plays out. It probably won't play out much at all. That'll be the best outcome for DCU because you really don't have any impact. You know what, Millie? I know you're young and everything. Maybe talk to Jennifer Lawrence. It took her a while, but she figured it out. She sure did. Yeah. Oh, well, good luck and all that stuff for Supergirl. I know they're reshooting it to add more Lobo. So it'll be more of a Lobo movie, maybe. I don't know. I mean, after Peacemaker #2 and the stumbling of Superman, not all that optimistic about DCU. And that's unfortunate. because I really wanted a successful DC Comics shared universe thing. At least 10 years. Marvel got 10 years. Why can't DC? And I guess it's not going to happen. I don't know. But them's the breaks. And no, she's probably just mad because her first name is a grandma's name. Yeah, she doesn't want to go by Mildred. Come on, Millie. It's cute. Anyway, but, it would really be harsh if the dog joined in, Oh, my God. Oh, no. Oh, please, no. Please, God, no. So anyway, speaking of people who destroy franchises, she can't say that she's done that just yet, but someone did. Someone went out of his way to do just that, even though the property put his name on the map big time, big time. That would be the now dead franchise of Doctor Who. Yeah. Russell T Davies renames Doctor Who's Sea Devils Homo Aqua. Calls original name Restless. So, going on with what he did to Davros, which told you everything you needed to know about his second run at Doctor Who, which was ballyhooed as the original showrunner came to save it from the disaster that had been the Jodie run and all that, and the steady decline of Doctor Who. Boy, this guy's going to come back and whip it back into shape, fix it up, and set it off back on a good course, and Doctor Who would be saved. Instead, he decided, Chibnall, you call that destroying Doctor Who? Buddy, let me show you how it's done. And then he did. But right out the gate for this little bitty special leading into the 3 episode specials he did with David Tennant and all that, was this Davros thing where he represented Davros as no longer in a wheelchair because he said putting the villain in the wheelchair is offensive to people in wheelchairs because it's part of a long-standing element of art and films and what have you, of handicapped people being seen as evil. I mean, it's just nuts that he does this, but he did it. And so that kind of thinking where you're at the point of having to make up epithets or scenarios where there's new marginalized people that you can utilize and say everybody was bigoted against and stuff like that. It told you exactly what the show would be about. Nothing but identity based on skin and genitals. And, well, this is it. This is pretty well. They got another special for Christmas next year for Doctor Who. He's going to write it. So the idea that, okay, all right, I'm going to fix it. And hopefully it'll have a springboard for a new series should someone else come in and take it over. No, it's not going to do that. He'll just quadruple down on what he's been doing. And so here he's already sabotaging the only thing of his supposed shared universe endeavor on Doctor Who was this spin-off miniseries about these classic, they were called monsters, but he doesn't want to do that either. The Sea Devils and a war between UNIT and the Sea Devils, which they always did in old Doctor Who, would be the plot of this series. So Russell T Davies has ignited fresh controversy. Not really, because no one cares about Doctor Who anymore. Just idiots like me. This time for changing the name of one of the show's most iconic villain races. Now, even in the old days, especially in Pertwee and stuff, he would try to see the other side and that kind of thing. And sometimes had some amount of sympathies for, the Silurians and the Sea Devils because there's a relationship there, that kind of thing. So, like he's breaking new ground or something. He isn't. He's just full of himself. So in an interview with Radio Times, the Doctor Who showrunner revealed that the upcoming spinoff, The War Between the Land and the Sea, will drop the term Sea Devil, replacing it with Homo aqua. Yes. Davey said the name James comes because it's racist to say sea devil. You know, about an entire race of people that don't really exist. They're fantasy characters. But nevertheless, you know, and that the term monster should also be avoided, as humans will serve as the villains in the start. Well, there's humans playing all the villain characters. Well, now what do you do? The spinoff is described as a sci-fi allegory for climate change. So if you weren't checked out already, so I don't know, the Homo aquas are upset because man has polluted the ocean. So there you go. So that's basically it. So you got to root for the Homo aquas, you know, because really it's humanity that's the problem. And by humanity, he means, you know. The new terminology instantly sparked backlash from fans, and many calling the move another example of Davies' obsession with rewriting Doctor Who history to fit modern political messaging. So there's guys who kind of look like, not really. This is a really different look for the Sea Devils. It's good work on the look and everything. Then her, I guess she's going to be half human and half Homo aqua. But that puts the Homo in the aqua, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, viewers quickly pointed out the biological inaccuracy of the change, noting that Homo refers to a genus of great apes, not reptilian sea creatures. Well, I mean, they're people in fish suits, you know? While others mocked the rebranding as forced and out of touch. Yes, and it makes a mockery of whatever he thinks he's doing as an allegory for the marginalized, you know, minorities in a given country or whatnot, and that sort of thing. He just makes a complete and utter mockery of the whole thing. But the whole point of it is exploitation. So, and he's doing that. So the Sea Devils, I mean, the Homo aquas, first appeared in 1972's Doctor Who serial of the same name. Really? I don't remember Doctor Who and the Homo aqua. Oh, the Sea Devils, right. Because, you know, back then, Doctor Who was a white supremacist, racist, horrible monster. And were last seen in the Jodie Whittaker era. Yeah, you know, actually, Jodie Whittaker, they could just call them Sea Devils, you know. They didn't get the memo yet. And they look like the Sea Devils. So, boy, I tell you, one thing Russell D. Davies has done has made the Jodie Whittaker era look a lot better than it initially was. Still has that god-awful Timeless Children in there. If it had just take that out and then you just have a bad Doctor Who run, but it still had a couple of episodes that were kind of like a Doctor Who show. Russell, he didn't do any of that this time around. Under Davies, even the show's legacy monsters are now being reimagined through a political lens. I mean, eventually you reach a point you can't do any episodes because to do so is going to be offensive, racist, bigoted, something. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that was the plan all along. The timing of the change couldn't be worse. Just days ago, the BBC confirmed DP had canceled its Doctor Who deal after 2 seasons, citing poor ratings and political backlash. Well, the poor ratings is the main thing. I know they were said that it's not really going to work in the Trump era and that sort of thing. But yeah, sure, whatever. But if the ratings had been top notch, yeah, you would have, because it would have made you some money. So you would have done another one. You know, if there was this big audience for Doctor Who, I'd still hate the show, but I'm like, well, it's working for somebody. What can I say? It's just not for me. And that would be, but that just never happens with any of these franchises. This audience they're chasing doesn't exist in large enough numbers to prop up these things. Now, Davies' decision to rename classic villains only adds fuel to the claims that the show has lost its identity. Ironically enough, because he keeps harping on identity all the time. Once a beloved sci-fi adventure, Doctor Who continues to alienate longtime fans. Yeah, they don't want them. They want them gone. And with what many see as a performative wokeness and forced social messaging. So, Yeah, don't watch it. Will I? Right now, I'm leaning with no. What would be the point anyway? Yeah. Hey, look, the makeup and costume looks cool. It's the last of that Disney money they stole. um, yeah, yeah. It's just, how can you sit through something like that? So this is the woman working for Unit, so I guess she's the villain. Yeah. So I don't know. But anyway, there you go. Another nail in the coffin of Doctor. Well, okay, you don't need the nails anymore. It's just, I don't know, pissing on the grave at this point. And this guy, I mean, his name became huge because of what he did for Doctor Who. And it's an amazing thing. And now he's going out of his way to burn that down. And so far, he's pretty good at that. Yeah. Yeah. Nodex says, holy, seems like Doctor Who has been the most woke. Do the woke people even like the newer Doctor Who? Well, the problem is there just aren't enough of them. Actually, a while back, yeah, you had some lefty writers saying, yeah, this show's just really preachy and it doesn't really do anything. I mean, they make a big thing about Ncuti Gatwa getting the role because he's black and he's gay. So he's going to play a black gay doctor. Yeah, that's not going to give him much range for a character or anything like that. Right off the bat, they wrote it. And if you're not familiar with Doctor Who, you won't get it. But the doctor would, whenever the actor playing him would have enough and want to move on or whatever, they would write it in the story that he got severely hurt, fatally. And then before he died, he had the ability to regenerate and restore himself, his health and everything. But when he did this, he turned into another person. He looked completely different. For the most part, these were all white men playing the character. Well, that's a problem in modern era and all that. So, okay. First, they turned him into a woman. Then they did this special. They brought back the most popular actor to play him in a long while for a special anniversary 3-episode arc. And they brought him back. And then, you got to get rid of him for their new doctor that they want, their doctor of color and all that. So instead of just having him get shot and regenerate into this new doctor, which, would have been the usual, instead, he split into 2 doctors. So the original doctor is still that guy played by David Tennant, living with one of his former companions, despite coming out as gay in the story as well. But but she's married, so wasn't gonna anything happen there anyway. So okay, that's where the real doctor is. Meanwhile, their brand new doctor is just this clone. So for all their virtue signaling, whatnot, their first, not their first black doctor, they had introduced one earlier, but nevertheless, this one, they made a big deal about him because he's gay and all that, and they don't even give him the character of the doctor. He's a completely brand new character. Has all the memories and stuff because he's a clone of the doctor, but he's just the clone. It was bizarre. Why do that? Then they had to do the gay romance episode where he just is trying to get laid with this guy he just met. Meanwhile, his companion nearly gets killed. And when the doctor realizes he was too busy trying to get laid, he just collapses and cries while the new boyfriend, his true long love at first sight, whatever guy that he's known for 5 minutes, suddenly has to step up and be the hero and sacrifices himself to save the girl. So again, they don't respect the property. They don't respect, Doctor Who and all that. It's an example of this. This goes along with Star Trek, Star Wars, all that stuff. But it doesn't even respect itself. Doesn't even respect their own show that they forced on everybody and can't see it because they're just too busy. Look at me. I've got the first gay Doctor Who. Aren't I wonderful? And that's it. No other thought is put into it. And boy, does it show. So there you go. Never mind the rest of the article. Answered that. Yeah. Can the Doctor transform into an animal like an owl, Doctor Who? Well, in an interview, Russell D. Davies said, I don't see any reason why not. You know, that kind of thing. So, given time, I guess. Yeah. It's stupid. It never happened. They never really did that. And that's a dumb thing to do. I mean, what would be how do you got to do at least 3 years of some CGI dog? You know, yeah, they're stupid. So, hey, I'm not being respected. No, you don't deserve it. Oh, well, hey, maybe there's some better news on the horizon. You never know. But here's a little story that I thought, boy, they should have revisited this some time ago. But, well, Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz returning for The Mummy 4. You know, back when they did that Dark Universe thing, I thought, especially since they wanted it to be an action adventure shared universe thing rather than horror, which was bizarre considering it was horror characters. But the Mummy series that Brendan Fraser starred in, that's what that was. It was an action adventure. It wasn't a horror. You know, there's the creepy monster mummy in there, and he was very menacing and all that. But it was more like Indiana Jones meets the Mummy, which that could have been an Indiana Jones movie. You know, he goes to an old tomb and the mummy comes to life, that kind of thing. But anyway, that's what they achieved, and it at least had 2 really good movies. The third one, And if that's the tone that you wanted for Dracula and the Wolfman and stuff, you could have spun it out of these movies. Yeah. But anyway, that flopped and burned. So now they're just going to, hey, let's revive this with Brendan and Rachel. So Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz are officially set to reunite for The Mummy 4, making the long-awaited return of Rick O'Connell and Evelyn Carnahan O'Connell to Universal's fan-favorite franchise. Probably do a send-off for the kids because they'd be old now. The trades confirmed the new movie is moving forward with directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Glay, maybe? Also known as Radio Silence. What? Are they a band? Update. The Hollywood Reporter says Mummy 4 is not a reboot. Don't call it a reboot. It's been a sequel for years and will ignore the events of the third film. Okay. Now, the third one, they went to China for a Chinese mummy. So okay, they're just gonna jump from the events of the from the second one. Well, now Imhotep ended up going to hell. So can he escape? I don't know. Or they'll have a different mummy. I don't know. Anyway, Fraser and Weisz last starred together in The Mummy Returns. Well, no, they starred together in 2008's Tomb Raider. The new film puts them back at the center of the adventure. A major shift as the franchise is stalled with 2008's Tomb of the Dragon Emperor and Universal's failed 2017 Mummy reboot starring Tom Cruise. And that was another one. Now, the Tom Cruise one, it tried to amp up the horror elements to it, but at the same time, they tried to do both. To where Tom Cruise is playing this, well, action hero. He did a lot of action stunts in it and that sort of thing, which is what he's known for. And certainly because, you know, the Mission Impossible and the like. And I don't know. It was just too much of the same thing. They probably would have, even though you had to introduce a new cast maybe or whatever, or a handoff from this or whatever they're going to do with this one. That probably would have been the better approach. I mean, it was a Kurtzman film, but it turns out Cruise did most of the directing. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was bad. You know, and just they announced this whole thing, and it was going to be this shared universe and all that. And then it was dead on arrival. So fans have been asking for this sequel for years, and Fraser has also openly supported the idea, as long as the tone stayed true to the original films. He previously pointed out that the Cruise version missed the fun. Yeah, because it was trying to be horror and this action-adventure thing. it didn't work. If they just made it full on horror, hell, that might have worked. Might have even been cheaper too. You didn't have to try to do all the effects that they did in the original or the Brendan Fraser mummies, and yeah, might have worked. But anyway, that made the 1999 and 2001 entries hits. Universal tapped Bettinelli Olpin and Glay, the duo behind Ready or Not and the recent Scream revival. I'm not familiar with it either. They specialize in action horror with humor and energy, which lines up with Fraser's view of what the mummy needs to be. Well, certainly his iteration of it. So yeah, he would expect that. Universal hasn't commented yet, but this movie signals a return to the tone that made the franchise work. Pulpy adventure, humor, monsters, and a light supernatural touch instead of a straight horror focus. And I understand I like the mummy movies that Brendan Fraser, well, the first two, this third one, you know, him and Rachel are in it and they're good, but couldn't save it. But nevertheless, I did like them, but and if this is kind of, if it was like a send off, you know, but if it's successful, it'll spark a new trilogy, probably with a handoff to the kids and that kind of thing. But ultimately, it's the same thing. I always come up with the vampire movies. I'm glad that eventually the vampire as a romance story dominated Dracula and all that stuff for the longest time, and then finally you got them to be monsters again. You know, with The Strain and 30 Days of Night and stuff like that. And I wouldn't mind a mummy movie that's a monster movie. But, and again, the formula for the Brendan Fraser movies was really good. And if they can recreate that, yeah, they'll probably have a hit on their hands. So, you know, maybe that'll work out. Hopefully it does. And Brendan Fraser's a good actor. He was in that miniseries with Donald Sutherland. And damn it, I'm forgetting the name. The Truth, I believe, about the Getty story and the kidnapping and all that. But the thing of it is, he played this character who was like this private detective in a cowboy hat that worked for Getty's, and that was Sutherland's character. I wish they would have done fictionalized characters based on on those two templates and made their own detective series because the back and forth between the two, it really worked. It would have been a cool show, I think. But didn't happen. The last thing I heard about him was he was in the Batgirl movie. And the only praise I heard about that, the people who actually got to see it before it was, you know, banished because of the tax write-off, was that his performance as the villain Firefly was the best part about it, is that he did a really great job in it. And it's kind of sad, but this movie made him a big star, and hopefully it works out for him, and hopefully it's really good. So check that out. As long as they poorly CGI The Rock's face on a giant scorpion again. I mean, yeah, that was bad. But the Scorpion King movie was probably, even with that was supposed to be a big setup for that. And I'm like, oof. See, they were already trying to do a shared universe then, you know. Nodak, he was the robot. Oh yes, Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol on Max. And yeah, he was good in that. He was good. All right. So, hey, maybe that's something to look forward to. Something on the horizon. Something that may actually work. It did twice before. Maybe the fourth time will be the charm. I don't know. Well, I mean, whatever. But other things, well, they didn't fare so well. And their day is done, apparently. So, oh boy, the long-awaited Star Trek 4 from the J.J. Abrams Trek is finally officially dead. So, Paramount dumps J.J. Abrams' Star Trek cast, eyes new direction which is what they should do for the entire franchise of Star Trek. And I know they want a movie franchise, so they're going to do that, but they really need to scrap everything for TV series and start a brand new one. That'd be my idea. Anyway, I always liked the cast of the J.J. Abrams films. It's just they really only had one good movie, and that was the first one. Into Darkness is just absolute garbage. And by comparison, Star Trek Beyond is better than that, but it's not all that great. But so they got two. But the cast, they knocked it out of the park, especially Carl Urban as Dr. McCoy. And that was going to be the toughest of the three, in my opinion, to sell. And he did it right. As soon as he's introduced, Carl Urban nailed that role. And he's like, all right, I'm on board, and then they had to find a way to ruin it. So Paramount isn't bringing back Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, or the rest of the crew from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot. Variety reports the studio wants a fresh Star Trek movie and has moved on from the Kelvin cast. That means no Pine Quinto Urban Bridge reunion and no continuation of the 2009 universe. This comes as Paramount is in transition and making franchise decisions tied to its future ownership. As been covered before in the James Gunn /DCU article, leadership wants recognizable IP with a clear strategy. Star Trek is part of that plan. But the reboot crew appears done. And that is sad. But also, they need to move away from prequels as well. You got to stand on your own. So the Kelvin trilogy, Star Trek Into Darkness and Beyond, had mixed financial results. The 2009 movie opened big, but the box office dropped by Beyond. Attempts to revive Pine and Quinto stalled for years, including the scrapped time travel movie with Chris Hemsworth. It wasn't a time travel movie. I know, it seemed like it would have been, but no. I think that was Benioff and Weiss were going to come in on this when we're writing this. I think that was them. And they said, hey, what about that episode in Next Generation where Scotty was his molecular data was stored in the transporter and they were able to beam him back out of it? They were going to do that with Chris Hemsworth. So not really time travel. It's just he somehow managed to store himself into the starship's transporter data bank, and somehow that survived the destruction of the ship. And then, they find it, and Kirk is able to revive it and beam him out. And then there's his dad, who hasn't aged a bit, alive. And then they were going to do some sort of story around that. Okay. Anyway, Paramount now wants a clean reboot or new timeline. I'd say both. New cast, modern franchise plan focused on theatrical, streaming, and global appeal. So, the movies you can expect to be more action-oriented. A series would be heavy on the science fiction. And you got to have a series. That's really where Star Trek belongs. Movies are possible. We've seen it done. But really, the backbone needs to be a strong Star Trek series. This mirrors moves across Hollywood. Reset, recast, rebuild. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Streaming spinoffs kept Star Trek alive. Did it? Familiar old worlds, Piss Hard, Lower Decks, and Dysentery. But Paramount wants a blockbuster film franchise again, not just shows on PP. Good Lord, this makes it sound like they're just going to keep the secret hideout thing going. Come on. Why burn you might as well burn the money. Yeah. I don't know. They say Strange New Worlds. Well, it performed better than the others, but that's akin to, it did better than paint drying. It can't possibly have brought in much for them. Besides, they've canceled it. And then the final season of it's going to be cut short. So they've got to be brooming this crap out. And then, yeah, you need to get somebody in there who knows what they're doing and start a new one and just forget this whole era of Secret Hideout Trek and move on. And no prequels. Don't go back and, hey, look, it's little toddler Kirk or some crap like that. No, none of that. Just go forward. Well, gee, that's tough. I want to be able to use, member berries and establish popular characters within it and milk it. You can't. You've been trying to do that for quite a while, but you didn't know what you were doing. It really stained up the whole concept of prequels. Really, the Captain Pike years was the only one that might have worked, but they didn't know how to do it. And so you missed the train on that one. So you got to go forward. The Next Generation managed to do that. Way back when, they had a struggle. It was hard for them to do, but they got there. And they became their own thing. And they had spinoff shows that, granted, were not as strong as Next Generation, but nevertheless, that was a successful run, and it lasted for years. That's you're going to have to try that again. Now, there's a lot of stains on the brand of Star Trek, so you're going to have to do some serious polishing, but it's not impossible. Star Trek remains the only franchise that has suffered such terrible damage over the woke era. It's the only one that could possibly resurrect by just forgetting everything you did recently. Starting over, brand new ship, brand new crew. You're in deep space on a mission. Go. That's what you do. Well, it's also been rumored that Paramount will be moving away from the Kurtzman Star Trek. They'd better, especially considering Variety reports it's headed in the quote-unquote right direction. Oh. Rumors even offer that William Shatner maybe. Well, maybe, I guess, for a cartoon or something. I don't know. But it can't be any Secret Hideout thing. Good Lord. Don't ruin his legacy, for God's sakes. So anyway, there you go. It's too bad about the Kelvin cast. They were the best thing about that attempt. And they got one pretty good movie out of it. So there, there's that. There's that. All righty. Moving right along for hopefully, better news. Hopefully it's better news. So here's the deal. That guy. The Godzilla -1, which was a film that was just a good film unto itself. Remarkably so. Especially since it's just Godzilla. He walks around and knocks down buildings and stuff. Yeah, but it was a really compelling, well done film. And the director, well, he's someone you want to pay attention to because he did this movie amazingly enough on the cheap. And boy, that's going to be important going forward, I would say. Toho reveals Godzilla -0, follow-up to Godzilla -1. And there's the star. He'll be back. The next chapter of Godzilla is here. Toho announced his follow-up to Godzilla -1, revealing the new title is Godzilla -0, stylized as Godzilla 0.0. During Godzilla Day 2025 in Tokyo. Huh. Director and VVX creator Takashi Yamazaki returns after delivering the first Oscar-winning film in the franchise's 70-year history. For a Godzilla movie. Yeah, but he deserved it. It's an amazing thing, but it's just a really good film. Anyway, Toho made the announcement during its annual celebration event, dropping a teaser logo and artwork featuring the stark black and white brushstrokes similar to -1. Yamazaki even co-designed the emblem, signaling creative continuity and a similar grounded aesthetic. While plot details are a secret, it's reported that the film is planned for a late 2026 global release. 2026, really? Production is expected to begin later this year. What you mean, like, I guess December, maybe? I mean, it's November as I tape this, so I don't know, including shoots in New Zealand and Norway. So there's the logo. Yeah. Goo! No. Godzilla -0. No, it's Goo! Oh, well. Yamazaki again writes, directs, and oversees VFX. Yeah. And that's one of the big selling points on it, too, because, I mean, that's not CGI. No, it's not. Teamed with Shirogami and Robot, the same crew behind -1. So Godzilla -1 was a phenomenon, made for around 15 million. One point, that can't be. 15 million, grossed 113 million plus worldwide, became the highest grossing Japanese live action film in U.S. history, won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, beating Hollywood blockbusters with budgets 10 times higher. Yeah. Plus, it had the advantage of being just a good movie, which most of those were not. The movie also marked the first Oscar win for Godzilla himself. Isn't that great? In Godzilla history, and cemented the franchise in prestige territory for a new generation of fans. Toho calls the next entry in the Minus Saga. The title suggests it works more like a countdown, a thematic march towards zero, or ground zero scale destruction. 3, 2, 1, boom. Rather than a numerical sequel label. Well, it's still numerical. Anyway, no cast has been confirmed. Well, Godzilla, and the story remains under wraps. However, following the World War II era trauma-driven narrative of -1, fans should expect strong character drama paired with terrifying kaiju scale. And that's the secret. A lot of times with Godzilla movies, you just want to see the monster knock buildings over and stuff. And then, I don't know, fight a robot or whatever. And, but this, because the human stories are just sort of there. Yeah. It's like, oh, we got to cut to those guys saying, oh no, Godzilla, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas here, you had this compelling drama and this guy who had to overcome his cowardice and guilt over that in the war. And basically, Godzilla becomes this metaphorical monster of the demons he's dealing with. So it just worked. It clicked on so many levels. And so now you got to come up with a scenario for the next one. Probably entirely different characters rather than just having those same people in it. Or I don't know, maybe they'll be around just to hand it off to another cast, something like that. But what would be the narrative for it? And well, maybe it seems like they got something because they're going to start shooting, I don't know, in a couple of weeks, I suppose, if they're going to be out late next year. So, but I really loved the film. I was blown away by it. And hopefully they don't screw it up. But even if it's just good, that's, good enough. And odds are it will be because the guy's very, very talented. And plus, it'll be cool to see what he does on other projects. Is it Yamasaki? I apologize, but he's definitely a guy a lot of people in the business need to keep a very strong eye on. So best of luck for Godzilla. Okay, so long for you. I don't know. A political shift in Paramount might destroy James Gunn. Yeah, maybe. I'm not going to bother with that. I want to get to these stories about what might have been. Those are always cool. I like looking at concept art, stuff like that. And a lot of them deal with the direction a movie might have gone, but for whatever reason, it didn't. So I've always had a fascination with that. Concept art. Always like looking at it, but in particular, when it details an approach they originally intended, and then for whatever reason, an actor quit, or they couldn't get the actor they wanted, and they said, "Well, what if we did it this way? And it would fit this guy better than that guy." Something like that. Sometimes entire settings get changed and all that, and it's always cool to look at it. And sometimes, more times than not, some of the lost approaches, yeah, that was probably would have been a lot better for them. So we'll start with two recent ones for approaches, and one that just never came to be at all. But let me go ahead with Tron Ares. And what might have been? Ah, yes. Oops. Tron Ascension, the shelved Legacy sequel, and the Korra story we never got. This is from Film Stories. Yeah. So Jared Leto was pivotal in getting Tron Ares made, but it seems he also had the script changed to turn his minor villain role into a new hero. Yeah, there's spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the film. Actor Evan Peters summed up Tron on-again, off-again franchise status in an off-the-cuff remark earlier in October when asked whether he was likely to appear in a sequel to this autumn's Tron Ares, reprising his role as the villainous Julian Dillinger. Peters simply said, "We'll see in 20 years if that pans out." He's referring, of course, to the vast 28-year gap between the original Tron, released in 1982, and its first sequel, Tron Legacy, which came out in 2010. But then this year's second sequel, director Joachim, Ronning's Tron Ares, has taken a full 15 years to get to the large screen, a gulf of time which has seen the rise and fall of 5 British prime ministers. Okay. The Moorbound box office for Tron Ares suggests that Peters may be right. It's likely to be some time before Disney revisits the digital realm of the grid again, at least on this scale. But as the dust settles on this latest Tron outing, it's worth remembering that Tron Legacy almost got a sequel almost a decade ago, and that over time, it was actor Jared Leto himself who transformed the project into, the one that gave him a starring role. So, all right, it's going in all of that history and whatnot. So anyway, the 2010 sequel explored how the boomer generation's idealistic vision for an interconnected future, as represented by now an older Flynn, has run out of control. Flynn's obsession with creating a perfect digital frontier resulted in the creation of Clue, a digital being or program who takes over the grid, commits genocide against a new race of artificial life forms, and rules the place like a despotic emperor, leading the rebellion against Clue, played in part by a de-aged Bridges, where Flynn's wayward son, Sam Garrett Hedlund, zapped into the grid, much like his father was decades earlier. And the last survivor of the ISOs, the childlike Korra, following a final conflict in the grid in which Flynn confronted the demonic version of himself. Tron Legacy ended with Sam guiding Korra through a portal and into the real world. Not exactly certain how that would even be possible, but they did. Tron Legacy wasn't quite the box office behemoth that Disney expected, but it still more than made money. Roughly $410 million on a budget of about $170 million. Its merchandise and other branding exploits, video games, toys, and animated spin-offs, plus disc sales of the first Tron, no doubt added to its profitability. There was also its infectious score by Daft Punk. While critics were mixed in their opinions on the film itself, most agreed that the soundtrack was an all-timer. All of which coaxed Disney into giving a sequel the go-ahead, with Steven Lisberger, one of the producers on the second movie. Talking about it in late 2010, Joseph Kosinski had moved on to the post-apocalyptic sci-fi thriller Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise, after he'd finished work on Tron Legacy. The hope was that he'd be available to shoot the sequel in a couple of years later. Work on Tron 3 was begun by screenwriter David DeGillo, taking over from legacy writers Edwin Kittis and Adam Horowitz. Although a succession of screenwriters would turn in their own drafts, looking back at interviews with various actors and all that. Boy, I'm getting tired of all this backstory. They wanted to see what happens to Cora in the real world. I think it was an interesting concept. Fascinated by discussions of AI, blah, blah, blah. It was also suggested that Cillian Murphy, who had an uncredited cameo in Legacy, could return in Tron 3, reprising his role as income boss Edward Dillinger Jr., son of David Warner's villain in the original Tron. By December 2012, screenwriter Jeff had taken over from DeGillo, but the outgoing writer had left behind an idea that would become pivotal years down the line: a villain named Ares. There was a very different movie, Wigoo Tao, recently told CBR about the earlier script. The film was a real sequel, a real construction of Legacy, or continuation of Legacy, rather, and it introduced a character named Ares, who was a much smaller role, but a real villain. By 2015, it seemed as though the production had settled on a script, and Tron Ascension, as it was titled, was well into pre-production. But by the middle of that year, filming was set to begin in Vancouver, and there were reports that Jared Leto was in talks to play its antagonist, Ares. Events occurring elsewhere at Disney, however, soon stopped Ascension in its tracks. The studio had suffered a string of expensive flops, including John Carter in 2012, and more crucially, Brad Bird's Tomorrowland, released in May 2015. Right around the time Ascension was being prepped, the latter film, a $180 million sci-fi adventure about a futuristic hidden city, barely scraped its budget back in cinemas. And Disney executives began to have second thoughts about spending similar amounts of money on another expensive genre film. By this point, Disney now had ownership of Marvel and Lucasfilm, and so superhero movies and Star Wars sequels seemed like safer investments than a second Tron sequel. So we were actually close to filming, DeGilio recently told the Hollywood Reporter. We were in heavy prep at the time, and the guys were scouting over in Shanghai when Disney purchased Lucasfilm. So that just sucked the air out of the room, because the biggest franchise in Hollywood was going to take their attention. It was a tough blow for us. Star Wars ruined everything. So Kosinski later said that Tron Ascension wasn't canceled, but rather put in stasis. All the same, Disney clearly wasn't in a rush to make the sequel, and Garrett Hedlund and Olivia Wilde were eventually released from their contracts. One person who never forgot about Tron Ascension, though, was Jared Leto, a self-described Tron super fan. He personally contacted Whittaker and began talking to him about amending the script to place more emphasis on the Ares character. So he says the first iteration of Tron Ares was a different movie, but it had a character named Ares that Leto was cast as. And while we were in pre-production, Whittaker told Polygon, he really got his teeth into this character and really wanted to hold on to it, and ultimately came to me and said, let's just build a movie around this character. I want to understand this character, his origins. I want to take him to a very different place. Well, it's a completely different character by then. So, man, I thought this really doesn't give you the plot details. I have to apologize for this. According to Tron Ares Production, Jared officially signed the film's signed on as film's producer in 2016. In the years that followed, okay, they rewrote it. But by this point, the script had long since written out Cora and Sam. I thought there was something in here where Ares was going to be hunting Cora. And I think the elements of the story was that she could survive in the real world, but not for the 30-minute limit that they had for like Ares and the rest. They needed the permanence code. So it's like, okay, the transition movie could have seen Cillian Murphy occupy the place taken over by Evan Peters in the finished film. Yeah, right, because he's playing that character. Well, he's playing the grandson at this point of Dillinger. Programs of weapons of the Grand manifested, so they did all that. The story's MacGuffin is therefore a piece of permanence code written by Kevin Flynn decades before his disappearance. In Tron Ares, it's Leto's character spawned for the grid as a high-tech soldier by Dillinger who goes off program and tries to hunt down the code so he can become a real human. Although we don't have access to any of the early drafts of the script. Oh, damn it, you tricked me. It seems like the Cora would have had the Pinocchio-like character arc taken over by Leto, with Ares being the Terminator-like villain dispatched to stop her from getting the permit. So there you go. He would have been chasing her, and they go back and forth from the grid and all that stuff, pretty much like the movie played out, except that it would have been more of a sequel to the characters established in there, which would make more sense. So it's like, if you didn't want to do that and you were done with Tron, then why do it at all? So, boy, what a lesson of what not to do. I don't think that works. And again, it got more derivative as you go. I mean, certainly the last one didn't do much for the actual Tron character. He's barely in it. And here, he's not in it at all. It's like when you want to do a movie about a specific character, like Batman or something like that, Batman's going to have to be in it, you would think, especially when you have Batman in the title. Well, why wouldn't it be the same thing for Tron? Yeah. It's a Tron movie, but there's no Tron. Oh. Well, I think you can figure out the math on that one. Yeah, I thought it had more details in it. I could have sworn I read the thing. Did I just glance at it? God, I'm an idiot. Scott B. Gotta go to work, Doug. Have a fantastic day. All right, have a good day at work. No, Doug, how many stinkers does Jared Leto have to be in for Hollywood to tell him no thing? Well, that's the thing. This is all him wanting to keep this thing alive and make it happen. And they did it. And yeah, he's had bomb after bomb. I don't know. Then again, it's like, does he have material on, and it's hard not to think it, All right. Well, here is, I think, definitely a what might have been story. About the creature from the Black Lagoon, which I suppose that would have been a part of Dark Universe too at some point. But this, I think, is a little different. The journey of John Carpenter's unmade creature from the Black Lagoon. Kaiju? Why kaiju history? I mean, was he going to make him a kaiju? Well, anyway, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein starts streaming soon and is merely the latest adaptation of the modern Prometheus. It's also one of two coming out within the next year when you count The Bride. That has me realizing something I don't think about too often. Who's writing that? Okay. A variety of reasons. Remakes of the classic Universal monsters are more prevalent than anyone cares to admit. Well, I mean, look, Frankenstein and Dracula and werewolf and stuff, that gets made quite a bit. So it's not really a new thing. Well, anyway, as much as many of us decry or dislike remakes on principle, the truth is they have been a thing as long as there have been cinema to circulate and proliferate. Well, there's difference. There's classic stories, so you can do your own take or adaptation of it to varying degrees of success. So it's not exactly the same thing as a reboot of popular franchises and whatnot, because the Universal monsters are their specific iterations of those. It's like their Frankenstein is not really the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Stuff like that. They're Dracula, same thing. So, Anyway, certain stories resonate and get retold through the ages, which is why timeless literature is a common thread in routine adaptations of Frankenstein and Dracula. Everyone and their mother who can amass a budget has tried to duplicate Universal success with those titles, starting with Hammer Films. Yeah, Hammer Films is probably the only one that's kind of like the runner-up to Universal, but they didn't really get to Universal's level of success at the time anyway. However, the constant reinterpretations didn't stop there. As the entire Universal back catalog of creatures has swept up in the fervor over and over, all the way up to today, well, at least except one, officially Universal's quintessential creature, hasn't appeared in a new movie since 1956. Just to put that into perspective, Godzilla was brand new then. Alfred Hitchcock was still at the height of his career, not to mention years away from Psycho. And your parents probably weren't even born yet. Well, mine were. But anyway, yeah, that's a good point. Frankenstein, Dracula, tons of werewolves and movies, even The Mummy. But not the Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is their most original character. Yeah. Anyway, still other versions of the Gill Man notwithstanding, Universal's original aquatic terror has not appeared in his own movie since the creature walks among us. As you can imagine, it wasn't for a lack of trying. Over the years, several renowned directors were attached to bring the Gill Man back to the surface. Peter Jackson had a choice between him and Kong, and we all know what he went with. Del Toro circled a creature project too, but he took his ideas to another studio to make The Shape of Water, and that worked out swimmingly for him. However, he and Jackson aren't the only ones to almost have their stamp on Universal's underwater attraction. John Carpenter was close to bringing his version of the monster to life and ashore. And for a minute, his project seemed to have the best chance of happening. Hey, look, it's John Carpenter. It goes back to the 1990s when Carpenter was back in the horror genre's good graces after They Live and Prince of Darkness. He wanted to bring the same level of energy to his creature by upping the gore and deepening the mystery behind its lore and origins. Like Joe Johnston did years later with the Wolfman, Carpenter was going to make the Gill Man a ferocious, animalistic force that showed no remorse to anyone who entered his domain, which would have taken inspiration from H.P. Lovecraft to facilitate his this vision. Carpenter enlisted the special effects wizardry of the inimitable Rick Baker, already a phenomenon in this practical effects world for his work on King Kong and An American Werewolf in London. Baker understood the assignment and set out to give Carpenter and fans a much more grotesque creature than they'd heretofore seen. As existing photos and makeup tests attest, Baker's design was going to be leaner and look angrier, with antipathy and sorrow in its eyes. There was also less emphasis on the lips. Baker explained his design thusly via Wicked Horror. My designs for the creature were kind of like my designs for Johnson's werewolf, or Wolfman. It was very much based on a love for the original material and trying to stay true to that in a lot of ways. I think we had a creature that was updated, but you could still tell where it came from. So there he is. Yeah, he does look kind of sad. But very much related to the original, yeah. Yeah. All right. Unfortunately, Universal had other ideas, put new tentative directors in place who didn't pan out, and two sides butted heads until Baker decided to split. The last straw was the rejection of his monster design. They were making it part dinosaur, part every fish in the world. It wasn't the Gill Man. Oh, my God. Carpenter's involvement didn't last nearly as long as Baker's. Why is unclear. Well, it's probably this type of crap. But most believed the failure of Memoirs of an Invisible Man, a comedic tale on the James Whale Claude Rains H.G. Wells concept starring Chevy Chase, broke the studio's faith in Carpenter and his ability to deliver. His Creature from the Black Lagoon was deep into development, but ultimately never greenlit without a satisfying explanation. As the man himself would say, what are you going to do? That's true. It's one of the most notorious unmade projects among monster movies and in Carpenter's career, but not the last word on what could have been. Kaiju history is full of these tales. But he's not a kaiju. I mean, don't kaijus have to be giant? Like Godzilla, that's a kaiju. Anyway, a new creature feature is in development. Oh, but with few details, we have to wait and see if it swims or sinks to join the annals of movies we never got to see. Yeah, this looks pretty good. And I mean, if it's just going to be a full on, and Carpenter can do horror, so that he's an actual full on monster, I don't know. Probably this one should have happened, but it didn't. And I guess they wanted a dinosaur fish. I don't know, because the thing about the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the original, that suit holds up to this day. It was a remarkable achievement, and they did that in the 50s. It's the most impressive looking of the Universal monsters too. And it's their original creation. It's not based on an adaptation of a classic horror story or anything like that. They won't even respect that. So that's sad, but there you go. There you go. Oh, well, too bad for the creature without a feature. Nodex says, that second newer Mad Max movie had zero Mad Max. Oh, yeah. That's a problem, too, I mean, why would you... I don't know. People are stupid. But especially in Hollywood. What are you going to do? I don't know. I really don't. Okay. All right. The final what might have been goes with the Kang Dynasty. Now it's going to be Doomsday and all that. Oh, but some things happened on the way, So here we're going to go with, hey, what might have been on this one? So, oh, there it is, already good to go. So, Doomsday Avengers is upon us soon, but it was going to be Kang Dynasty, And there was all this setup. Now there's no setup for Doctor Doom at all. Is that going to work? I'm dubious, but nevertheless, what about that Kang story? Well, let's take a look. So, Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, everything revealed and leaked about Marvel Studios' unmade Avengers 5 movie. Well, again, there's going to be an Avengers 5, but it's going to be called Doomsday now. Yeah. So when Marvel Studios introduced Kang, a.k.a. He Who Remains in Loki, the stage was set for the MCU to get an even more formidable big bad than Thanos. However, the studio made a major misstep by throwing his most well-known variant, Kang the Conqueror, into Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. In the movie, Kang, we expected to be the multiverse saga's endgame, was soundly beaten by the title Heroes. Then, to make matters worse, rising star Jonathan Majors was dropped from the role after a well-publicized domestic abuse trial. Of course, you could have just recast him. I mean, the whole point about Kang is that he has these multiple variants of him because he keeps time traveling all the time. So it just could have been some other actor. Anyway, Marvel Studios ultimately decided to move on from Kang and will instead focus on Doctor Doom in the next Avengers movies. But there won't be any setup. Okay. Since the Kang Dynasty, now titled Doomsday, was first announced for a May 1st, 2026 release, a surprising amount has been revealed about what it would have looked like. Today, we've shared an updated roundup of everything you need to know about the MCU movie that never was. From a villainous Iron Man to Kang's backstory and the movie's leads, this is what might have been in Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Earlier this year, concept art for the next Avengers movie leaked online, though we still don't know whether this was for this iteration of the Kang Dynasty or the one Doomsday that the Russo brothers are working on. I think the Russo brothers denied that it was there, if they're talking about what I'm thinking of, and that might have been a part of the Kang Dynasty concept art, and some of that might survive with Doom instead, but it's no longer, the film. Regardless, it showed the Young Avengers assembled, and writer Michael Waldron recently confirmed that he and Jeff Loveness had plans for the team to take on and defeat one of Kang's variants. However, the scene would have been played for laughs, with the team seemingly the butt of the joke, because that's the magic sauce of MCU. Giggle tee hee jokes, So that's what they were going to do. It's Jeff Loveness and I spent an afternoon pitching on the Young Avengers defeating a version of Kang and being so stoked about it, only to discover that particular Kang carried a little card that said to be patient with him. It was his first day as Kang. Waldron explained. And then they were so bummed. I think he was going to be the Lizard King from the end of Kang Dynasty. I don't know. Well, maybe you needed to know that. Now, in the actual Young Avengers storyline, they had these young kids who were taking on superhero aliases that were based on the likes of Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, and all that. And the Iron Man character called himself Iron Lad and was eventually revealed to be a teenaged version of Kang. So yet another variant of him. And it was kind of like this reveal. So I thought, maybe they would do some kind of story like that. But instead, it's some dumb thing like this. I don't know if that's what they were going to do with it. But he was going to be the lizard guy. I don't know. Anyway, it sounds like a fun sequence, but perhaps relies a little too heavily on that Rick and Morty style of humor. Still, it's an indication of what we have seen with all those Kang variants running loose in the multiverse. So there's the Kang variants in the comics, but they did a scene like that at the end of Quantumania. So the earliest plot leaks for the Kang Dynasty suggested we'd meet a much younger version of Loki's, He Who Remains, as the scientist Nathaniel Richards. The plan was for him to join forces with the Avengers to take on Kang and his many variants. Unsurprisingly, the Council of Kang would defeat the Avengers, prompting the remaining heroes to traverse the multiverse in Avengers Secret Wars and assemble a team of heavy hitters, characters from the X-Men and Fantastic Four franchises, along with actors like Hugh Jackman, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire were set to be among those enlisted. We'd guessed Nathaniel was going to turn on the team at some point, though this rough plot outline didn't allude to his final fate. Perhaps he'd have created a new sacred timeline, leaving the MCU's character in another loop, which softly rebooted the MCU. Yeah, they were going to do a reboot of some sort of, no matter how this unfolded, but either way, Kang was to remain front and center, hence the title. And there was zero mention of Doctor Doom. Right. Yeah. Shortly after the Kang Dynasty was announced, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings director Destin Daniel Cretton was hired to take charge of the movie. The response from fans was positive, particularly as he'd steered Shang-Chi to such great success in the final months of the pandemic. Okay. With fan theories about the Ten Rings being linked to Kang, rumors soon started swirling about Simu Liu being a huge part of what came next. Jeff Loveness, meanwhile, was brought on board to pen the screenplay, and introducing Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Marvel Studios was left reeling by the negative critical and fan response to the movie, and several months later, Loveness was pulled from the project and replaced by Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness scribe Michael Waldron. He'd already been tasked with writing Avengers: Secret Wars, but was never a particularly popular choice among fans. And eventually, we heard that he too had been ditched, and thus ended Kevin Feige's apparent love affair with Rick and Morty creatives. Or not, as Waldron is working on the next Avengers movies alongside Stephen McFeely. Well, all right then, he wasn't really ditched. They just ditched Kang. Anyway, according to Feige, the idea was for Avengers: The Kang Dynasty and Avengers: Secret Wars, and this was back when they were both set to be released in the same year to bring the multiverse saga to a close. At the time, Marvel Studios was still releasing an insane amount of content in the theatrical and streaming landscapes, meaning we'd race to the finish line by 2025. After the creative experience we had with Infinity War and Endgame, it felt like it was about capping a saga, Feige explained in 2022, saving back-to-back Avengers films for the completion of a saga. So many of our movies now, Multiverse of Madness, and what you're about to see in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, are all big team-up films introducing big parts of the mythology. Avengers films really should be the crapper to the saga. That still appears to be the plan. Yeah, what else? Yeah, it's too late to do anything else, Though, with a year between Doomsday and Secret Wars, rumor has it we'll spend a little extra time on Battleworld. As production on the Kang Dynasty continued, more plot details started surfacing, with Waldron in total control of both that and Secret Wars. It seemed that tying the story into the Doctor Strange sequel became a bigger priority. Earth 616 was reportedly set to face an incursion with Earth 838, the home of the Illuminati. A previously unseen member of the team would come to the MCU, seeking to avenge his fallen allies. An Iron Man variant and the creator of the Ultron drones we saw in the group's headquarters. Oh, and Robert Downey Jr. would likely return to play him. We also started hearing about the Beyonder being introduced as a Kang variant. Ugh. Perhaps with the Conqueror from Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania returning with powers he'd presumably gained from his Time Chair's power core. Yeah, sure. That might explain rumors of Marvel Studios intending to kill either Scott Lang, Hank Pym, or Janet Van Dyne in the Kang Dynasty. Quantumania's ending, with Scott worrying about his actions, was tacked on in reshoots and clearly setting Marvel, or something Marvel intended to revisit. Well, Loki revealed that he who remains was the Kang who won the multiversal war after figuring out how to defeat his variants. He subsequently created a single sacred timeline and, having grown bored with watching over it, planned for Loki to take his place. We then met Earth 616 Kang, Victor Timely, though he was ultimately rendered harmless. Whether he and he who remains were the same person from different points in time is unclear, particularly as Marvel Studios has failed to really differentiate between time travel and the multiverse. Yeah, that's kind of a problem too. Loveness, however, planned to take a deep dive into Kang's history and finally answer all those lingering questions. Lots of stuff was deleted, he said, while promoting Quantumania. One in particular, there's a little more Kang backstory, and I think it's probably better saved or served for Avengers, where he's going, where he's been, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, one crazy rumor even positioned Kang as a hero who was going to try to save the multiverse from Doctor Strange, who, having traversed the multiverse, had caused a string of incursions. It sounded like a weird, very busy, and very messy movie. Yeah. For the longest time, we heard the idea was for Spider-Man to be Avengers I guess it means Avengers Kang Dynasty lead character. Now, as we head into Avengers Doomsday. That's clearly not the plan with Spider-Man. Brand new day on the horizon. And it feels like the focus may shift away from the web slinger. Not necessarily. They could just throw in a in-credit scene and he's whisked away to Doomsday, you know. Loveless supposedly had the majority of the multiverse saga's leads, minus Thor for some reason, battling Kang's variants on Earth. Despite that villain's presence, the story was described as largely grounded and light on full-blown multiversal elements. Waldron's vision was thought to be similar, but put a greater emphasis on the multiverse before giving alternate reality heroes a much larger role in Avengers' Secret Wars. As for the leads, we'd heard they'd be Captain America, Sam Wilson, Spider-Man, Moon Knight, the Hulk, and She-Hulk. At one point, it was even reported that the idea was to pull a whatever with King. That's a reference to Naruto. Okay, yeah, I don't know it. And a character named Madara, who was introduced as a serious threat in Big Bad. However, Kagaya unceremoniously killed Madara, proving he wasn't the threat everyone thought. It was instead established as the true villain. Instead of the Beyonder, perhaps Doom is now the Kagaya in this scenario. Yeah, probably. I think a lot of these plot elements will stay intact. It's just Doom will be the guy. We'll finish with most up-to-date plotly, which, as expected, appears to borrow elements from the other details listed here and add some new ones to the mix for a movie that, at least at first glance, had the potential to be pretty. What? You just got through calling it a mess. It said that separate Avengers teams set out to battle Immortus, Centurion, and Ramatut, the three Kang variants teased at the end of Quantumania. However, the Conqueror variant was going to return from the Beyond in the third act to take revenge against his doppelgangers and become He Who Remains. It's unclear what would have happened from there heading into Avengers Secret Wars. But with history repeating itself and the multiverse once again destroyed, we've heard surviving heroes from several different realities were set to battle the Beyonder in the void. A very early draft of Loveness's Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, is also leaked online. While we can't say for sure whether it's the real deal, you can check it out here. Now, never mind. So there we go. Some of these elements, yeah, it's still a multiverse thing. Earlier things about Doomsday where they different eras. Certainly the X-Men era will collide with the MCU, and the Fantastic Four that they just introduced will be in there. And I'm guessing bring back the Spider-Man. And so there you go. And it all collapses into Battle World. And then that's Secret Wars, which there was a rumor they may even split that into two movies to try to do this story because it's really cluttered. So I don't know. But the interesting element here about the evil Tony Stark and that possibly have Robert Downey Jr. play the character. Instead of the evil Iron Man, they just put Dr. Doom in there. Probably the same thing, you know. But but the initial plot was for wanting revenge on what happened to the Illuminati. They all got killed off by the Scarlet Witch in the Doctor Strange film. But you know, they're gonna have the Doctor Doom was the, or if it is, they're just gonna say this Doctor Doom is Tony Stark. He just became known as Doctor Doom, and with his Ultron robots and stuff, perhaps. There's just not enough setup for Doctor Doom, and the more far afield you get from the character, it's not going to work, I don't think. But anyway, a good bit of this will probably remain in place. It's just instead of Kang, it'll be Doctor Doom. So there you go. Sounds like either way, probably would have been pretty bad, you know, because it's just so cluttered. I don't know how any of it, how does the story even have time to breathe with that amount? And then even if they do split up Secret Wars into 2 movies, would anybody be on board for that? I'm dubious. All right, there we go. That's Nailsin Ratings Live. Gee, you're all caught up on that stuff. For some dumb reason, I thought that would work out better than it was. It's like, I'm kind of let down by all of this. Well, you know, the Godzilla movie might be pretty good. Maybe the Mummy one, you know, with Brendan Fraser and stuff. And we're not going to get another Kelvin Star Trek. So there's that. Oh God, and that god awful Doctor Who movie. That no, geez. But you are going to get that, but you don't have to watch it. And I would recommend you don't. You know, just don't. And what else? Well, I guess that's it. Yeah. And then a couple of things of what might have been. Yeah. There's always that. Yeah. But anyway, that's it for your, you know, pop culture nerd news rundown. Yeah. Ari Jane. Oh, Ari, nice of you to stop by. She says, thank you, Doug. Well, I did the best I could. I'm glad you showed up and liked it. So thanks for watching, Ari. Very nice. So anyway, there we go. That's the dealio, and no super tips. Well, I tried, but even I'm admitting I kind of failed here. Damn, I really thought that Tron Ares thing had more details on. Where did I get that? Am I thinking of another article? Maybe. I don't know. Oh, well. And that's another one. Would that have worked? I mean, at least it would have had the original characters come back and continue their story, because Legacy was, you know, Legacy. It was a handoff to Flynn's son. It probably would have, at least, because I wasn't blown away by Tron Legacy, but a lot of people were. They really, really liked it. And it kind of had a second life, you know, after it was over with. So, yeah, odds are having at least a genuine sequel to those characters probably would have worked out a lot better. Ari Jane, what a pleasant way to start the day. An entertaining listen. Well, thank you, Ari. That's very sweet. Very nice. So there we go. We'll do it again soon. I was going to do a drawing stream before I went to bed. I might, but I can't promise it. I can't. But just throwing that out there. What a tease I am. And that'll be the end for this. But hopefully, certainly in the night, probably do a Nailsin news thing. But for the weekend, I got to go back to work. But this stuff doesn't pay for itself, you know. You know how it is. You got to work if you want to eat. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll do it again soon. Have a good rest of your day.
Hollywood good, could really wish they would. There's no debating. All that's left is the Nailsin reign. The first feast from the corpse of the beast. Only after the feel of the vulture. Pop goes the culture. Pop, 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 pop goes the culture. Myths and legends, glancing escape to heaven. A dark
As the song goes, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Turns out that was truer than most realize. People think Spider-Man shoots webs out of these devices on his wrists that he invented. This is true, but he also naturally shoots webs out of his ass. But webbing wasn't very practical, so he made the wrist things. However, sometimes, especially after a bout of diarrhea, Spider-Man ended up with his ass glued to the toilet seat. So when Dr. Octopus robs a bank or the Green Goblin bombs a hospital, people ask, where the hell was Spider-Man? Turns out he was stuck on the potty.